My name is Charles Kelly, and today's date is March 21st, I believe, 2013. And I'm at the home of Mr. John Cronin, Cronin, here in Crestview Hills, Kentucky. And I have the privilege of interviewing him today about
March 20th.
Thank you. March 20th. Thanks, Mr. Cronin, 2013. And I have the pleasure of interviewing him on his World War II experiences. So please, Mr. Cronin, can you state your full name and birthday?
My full name is John Ellsworth Cronin, Ellsworth being my mother's maiden name. I was born October 28, 1923, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Thank you. Now, can you tell me what branch of the service you were in?
I was in the Air Force, which was still a part of the Army when I went in.
Okay, Mr. Cronin, now can you tell me briefly about your life in, did you say South Dakota? South Dakota. Where did you grow up? What did your father do? Your childhood, what was that like?
We weren't long in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was born there. A couple of years we moved to Milwaukee. My father was with the Dunlap Tire Company at that time. When he moved to Milwaukee, he was recruited by Firestone, went with them as a store manager. My sister and brother were born there in Milwaukee. After a couple of years, we moved to Chicago, where he was central store manager for the main Firestone store in Chicago. That was about 1933. And we stayed there till 36 and moved to Cincinnati, where he became district manager for Firestone. And we settled down in Bond Hill in Cincinnati. That's really where I grew up.
And briefly, Mr. Cronin, can you tell me a little bit about the Depression? Was your family affected by the Depression? Do you remember much about that?
I remember there was a depression. A lot of people that we knew were having a hard time. But my dad always managed to stay working. As I said, he's with Dunlap Tire, Firestone Tire Company. And he had good jobs, and so we didn't feel the depression too much.
Okay, so you were living in Cincinnati when World War II broke out. You were at St. Xavier High School when the war broke out?
No, I was a second semester sophomore at the University of Notre Dame. You know, I was a freshman at the University of Notre Dame when the war broke out in December 41. And I tried to enlist in April 42 at a recruiting team at Notre Dame. But they told me I had to be 19 years old before they would take me. And why didn't I join up? They're going to be on campus a few weeks after my 19th birthday in October of 42. So they were, and I enlisted on November 17th, 1942 as an aviation cadet. And I was called to active duty when I was a first semester junior at Notre Dame on February 16th. I had to report to Fort Ben Harrison in Indiana on the 26th of February. Was shipped immediately to Miami Beach to a basic training unit.
What was the basic training like?
Oh, a lot of marching and drilling and learning Army regulations and things like that. It wasn't bad.
How long did that last?
6 weeks.
What was the chow like?
Yeah, I survived. I guess it was all right. I wasn't much of a gourmet eater, so.
So there's a lot of marching. You learned how to shoot a weapon?
Yes, I remember in my mementos that I showed you, there's an order to report to the firing range to fire a U.S. Army carbine and a Thompson submachine gun. I trained on those and with a .45 pistol.
What was the mood like at basic? Were young men excited? Were they scared? What was the talk like then?
Well, I was with a group mainly of people who were enlisted as aviation cadets, and we were wanting to get to the flying part. So I don't think we were scared. We knew the war was on. There were some successes overseas, and there were some failures. But the mood, I'd say, was pretty good.
Why did you choose the aviation branch?
I wanted to fly.
Very good. Can you backtrack? What was the mood like at Notre Dame? Do you remember when the war broke out? What were the young men? Because it was only men back then at Notre Dame, right? What was everybody saying? Were people scared? Were people?
No, people were trying to line themselves up and decide how they were going to get into some branch of service. Everybody was pretty hot to trot, and I told you how I enlisted. There were others that enlisted with me at that same time, and
did you know anybody that was turned down?
I didn't know anybody. Yeah, I do. One of my childhood friends here in Cincinnati was turned down.
Why was he turned down?
He had something wrong with him. I don't know what it was, but he was turned down and wasn't drafted.
Okay. So at basic training, which lasted 6 weeks, did anybody wash out of that or fail that?
No, that wasn't that severe.
Okay. Then after basic, that was in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And at some camp, what was the name of that camp?
It was just to Miami. It was a basic training unit in Miami. You stayed in a hotel.
Oh, you stayed in a hotel?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, where? Downtown Miami?
Well, Collins Street enters my memory.
Okay.
Somewhere down there.
Was it fun? Did you get any R&R time?
Yeah, we had R&R time. I found out if I went out for boxing, I could get out of drill on Saturdays, so I did that.
You were a boxer?
Yeah.
Any good?
No.
So was it like you probably had never been to Florida before, had you?
I had been with my folks, yes,
Okay.
and before 33, 34, somewhere in there.
Okay. So after basic, you finished basic when? What month was that about? That was 42 or 43, did you say?
That was in, let me get my book out.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
do better
Hang
with
on
that.
here. Okay, Mr. Cronin, so after when did basic end, and what did you do
Miami
after that?
Beach Basic on March 27th, 1943. I was shipped to Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. It was called the 28th College Training Detachment.
Mm-hmm.
We were to go there and be held there in reserve until we called up for pilot training. While there, we had 10 hours in a J3 Cub instruction. I have a logbook that still shows what we did there.
What was a J3 Cub like? What was that? Is it a small plane, a prop plane? Oh, okay. A little single engine.
Yeah, a little single engine Piper Cub. Yeah. That was exciting. That gave us an idea that maybe we were in the Air Corps.
So you learned how to fly it up there in Cleveland?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, very thrilling, really. I really enjoyed it. We weren't allowed to solo. We had to take the 10 hours of dual instruction. And we did all the maneuvers and did fine. I have my logbook that stated I passed.
Where were you staying? You were staying on campus?
On campus at Western Reserve University in Cleveland.
Okay. How long were you there?
I left there on March 29th, 1943. So I was there roughly 2 years. No. Roughly.
So you arrived 28th.
Left Miami Beach March 27th.
Oh, when you arrived there March 29th, 19.
I arrived in Cleveland March 29th.
Oh, and you...
Yeah, I left Cleveland May 16th, 43.
Oh, okay. So you were there a couple months.
Yeah.
Month and a
while
half.
I was there, I had a perforated eardrum. I got an infected ear.
How did that happen? From flying?
I don't know. I just got an ear infection, and next thing I knew, I had blood on the pillow when I woke up. I had a perforated ear.
What was your medical treatment like back then?
Well, I had excellent treatment because we had the doctor there at the Western Reserve University. He took good care of me, but he couldn't do anything about the eardrum.
Sure.
I left Cleveland on May 16th, 43. I arrived at the classification center in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where we were to find out how we were doing, and from there, theoretically, on to pilot school.
Okay. Did you go by train, all these places?
Yes, by train.
What was the train trip like back then?
Pretty grim. On one train trip, I slept up on the baggage rack.
Did you really? Why?
Well, it was the only place I could lie down.
Was that crowded?
Yeah.
Crowded with soldiers?
Yeah.
That sounds tough.
Well, it was better than anything else I could think of. If you lay down on the floor, they walked on you.
Did some people have to do that? Lay on the floor?
Oh, yeah, if they wanted to lay down. Otherwise, they sit in the seats. They were just regular old train seats.
What was the mood like on the trains?
Oh, kind of excited to get where we're going.
Yeah.
Move on with the process.
Sure. So then what happened in Nashville?
There they classify, they give you a pretty extensive physical exam, psychological exams, all geared to see whether you're fit to be trained as a pilot, or navigator, bombardier, whatever the case may be. My problem was that my perforated eardrum immediately got me removed from the pilot program.
Did it really?
Yes.
But it healed, didn't it?
Yes, but my hearing wasn't very good. I only had 50% hearing left. And
So were you disappointed?
I was really disappointed, yes. I really had my heart set on being a pilot, and I had to face the fact that I wouldn't be. So they shipped me out of Nashville to Maxwell Field, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And to show you how the Army works, they sent me to an altitude training unit, which is a pressure chamber to train, acclimate cadets to flying at altitude.
Okay.
Now that didn't make sense with the ear I had.
No, that didn't make sense at all.
So, but that's where they sent me, and I stayed there. So I got there in May. In June, I requested a transfer. I left Maxwell Field on July 1st. I was sent to a training group in Keesler Field, Mississippi. Further tests and qualifications to find out what I was qualified for.
Why did you request a transfer?
I requested the transfer from Maxwell Field because some lieutenant there wanted to make me a truck driver.
Oh,
and
no.
I thought the only way to do that is get the hell out of town.
Yeah. Wow, so you went from hoping to be a pilot, then you were going to be driving trucks, which is fine, but just not what you wanted to do.
I wanted to be air crew, some part of an air crew.
Yeah, you had training already.
Yeah, so I wound up at Maxwell Field, and
so you end up in Alabama.
Well, let's see. I requested a transfer. I left there July 1st, Maxwell. Arrived at Keesler Field, which is a classification center for air crew members.
Okay.
It does more physicals, more training. And while I was at Keesler, that's when the guy wanted me to be a truck driver.
Okay.
So I got out of there. I was shipped to, they had a program called Army Specialized Training Program. And from it, they were supposed to go to college and kind of root there until they were ready to get you to officer training.
Oh.
So I did that. I arrived August 15, 1943. And I was shipped to Army Specialized Training Unit at Louisiana State University, which wasn't bad.
Oh, yeah? Do you live in the dorms there?
Yeah, lived in the dorm there, right over in the football stadium.
Oh, yeah?
They had dorms in the football stadium.
Could you? Now, what'd you do there? Could you go to regular classes or?
Yeah, I went to classes. Completed their semester on December 3rd, 43. I passed thermodynamics, calculus, mechanics, shop drawing, science, some of which I already had at Notre Dame, wasn't too tough. And then I applied for transfer from there, and I was shipped to Gulfport, Mississippi.
And what rank were you this entire time?
I was a private, big and private.
And how were there stories about how the war was going at this time?
Yeah, we knew how the war was going. And a lot of young fellows were wanting to do our part, so I tried to find some place I could get into an air crew and get overseas. That's what I was trying to do. So when I went to Gulfport, Mississippi in January of 44, I was classified for radio and gunnery schools.
Okay.
I was shipped out of Gulfport on January 26th, 44. Was sent to Truax Field, Madison, Wisconsin. Now, that was not a radio operator school. That was a radio mechanic school.
Mm.
Well, you do what you can. And then I went through the course there. And then from there, I went to Chanute Field.
Where's that?
In Illinois on July 1st, 44. I had 6 weeks of electronics training. I left Chanute Field and arrived at Boca Raton Air Force Base in Florida, and there I was going to take radar training.
Wow.
I started school on August 28th, 44, radar for Troop Carrier Command.
Mm-hmm.
Finished school, promoted to Corporal in November 44. From there I went to an overseas replacement depot in December of 44. I shipped out in January 31st on the Queen Elizabeth, as a matter of fact.
Queen Elizabeth, and you shipped out from where?
Overseas replacement depot. Actually, a base up in Seacoast. I forget I went from the overseas replacement depot right to the Seacoast and onto the ship. Right.
So that was January of 45. So you're getting your chance to go overseas, right?
I'm overseas. I'm going now on the Queen Elizabeth.
What was that trip like on the Queen Elizabeth?
Oh, that was pretty neat. That's a pretty good ship. That was me waving out the window.
There you are, waving out the window.
Yeah, a porthole, I guess.
Porthole. So what did people do on the ship for fun?
Not a whole lot. The ship was really crowded. You could hardly move. You had to eat at certain times, and you really just killed time is about all you did. That's all you could do. I think they had movies once in a while.
Movies? Did people play cards and stuff?
Play cards, yeah. We were 5 or 6 days on that ship.
Now, how was it? Now, I know you're a Roman Catholic. Were you able to go to Mass all the time, or did you have any...
I was at Gulfport, and the Queen Elizabeth, I think they had chaplains. I'm sure they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recall whether it was Sunday occurred at the time I was on the ship or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I left New York on January 31st, 45. I arrived in Glasgow, Scotland on February 6th, 45. Went to Warrington, England, which is a Burton Wood replacement depot.
Oh, okay.
From the replacement depot, I was shipped to 313th Troop Carrier Group in England at Wokingham, England.
Mm-hmm.
Assigned to the 9th Air Force, 313th Troop Carrier Group, 29th Squadron, as a radar repairman and operator, with an MOS of 849.
What does MOS mean?
Military Occupation Specialty. It's a number that tells what you're qualified for.
So were you qualified to be on a plane then? The radar on the plane?
Yes.
Okay.
I was qualified to be on.
And what was England like at this time? Did you get to see much of it or go around?
At wartime, England was pretty grim. They still had raiders, German raiders over England in those days.
Okay.
Not much because...
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good coffee. Thanks, Mrs. Cronin.
The 8th and 9th Air Force, the British just knocked the hell out of the German planes.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty well subdued
Mm-hmm.
in January 45.
But they still were coming over sometimes?
Yeah, there's
an article there. Yeah, you're reading me. For the first time in nearly 9 months,
yeah, February 45.
The Luftwaffe Saturday night sent an undetermined number of piloted planes against towns and villages in the north and east of England. Wow.
Yeah.
So did you get a little R&R around England? What was that like?
Yes, I got to, London. I don't think I have any pictures of that. But I got to London, I spent a couple of days there. And,
what'd you do?
Sights off, tried to see everything I could. I was only there for a few hours. Enjoyed it.
What were the English people like?
They're very friendly. They were very beaten down by that time. They'd been in that war since 39.
Yeah.
And as you see, they still had raiders dropping bombs on them. and but they could see the end in sight.
Yeah.
Like they could feel it, and everybody could feel it.
So then what happened? You were assigned to 313th Troop Carrier Group?
Yes, in Fockingham, England. And then we left England on March 4th, 45, and arrived in France, Air Base B-54, in Erlay, France, between Arras and Amiens,
Okay.
13 kilometers north of Albert. Our 29th Squadron was one of 3 in the group. We had 24 C-46s aircraft, a total of 72 in the group. They were the first C-46s in the European theater. They had come from the Pacific.
What were those? What was the C-46 like?
Well, it was supposed to be an improvement on the C-47, and in reality it was a disaster. I'll tell you later on that.
Okay.
But it held twice as many paratroops as the C-47. It had 2 doors, so they could eject the 32 as fast as the C-47 could 16.
Okay.
And everything was supposed to be great, except for one thing. Somebody at the higher ups forgot they did not have self-sealing gas tanks. Meaning when a bullet would penetrate the wing and the gas tank, it would leak gas immediately into the wing cavity. It would run down the wing cavity into the hot engine, and we had a fire. So as a result of that, the only mission that was flown at that time, it was the largest paratroop drop in one day in World War II in Europe. We dropped the, turn that thing off. On March 24th, 1945, Operation Varsity was the largest aircraft parachute drop in one day in the history of the European theater. We had C-46s, as I explained. The other planes were C-47s. The book Ridgway's Paratrooper by Clay Bear explains this whole operation very well. I did not fly on this mission because it was daytime. In order for the paratroopers to connect back with the Air Corps, if they jumped at night, they would have an advanced group of 10 or 12 paratroopers dropped in an area close to the drop zone at night with a unit of transmitter called Rebecca, a code name Rebecca, and they would carry that transmitter and set it up right near the drop zone. So when the time came for the planes to come at midnight or 1 or 2 o'clock, they could home in on that transmitter. So it was a navigational aid. Now, the drop that I mentioned that happened on March 24th was a daytime drop. That's why I didn't have to go. We didn't have to operate the Rebecca system. It was all, they could navigate by their eyesight practically. And
So were you involved with the Rebecca system?
Yes.
Would you land? Okay.
Yes, we were trained to operate the Rebecca system. It was Rebecca was the name for the transmitter. They had a name for the receiver, which of course stayed with the Air Corps.
So you operated the receiver?
Yes.
Okay.
In a plane.
I understand. Okay.
So that would be a navigational aid.
Yes.
Well, they didn't need that, so I didn't have to fly on that mission, which was fortunate. Because of the defect in the self-sealing gas tanks, out of 72 planes, we lost 19. We lost most of the crews. Our group commander, Colonel Fowler, was killed. He went down with his plane. We lost 19 planes. Now, you might note of 181 C-47s that dropped paratroops on that mission, only 1 was lost to flak. We lost 19 out of 72. What would happen is the gas would leak into the wing cavity, run down the wing into the hot engine, and explode or set the engine on fire, and then it was all hell broke loose. Now, most cases, the paratroops were able to get out. Out the door they went. A lot of the air crews went out the door, too.
Would you know when you were hit right away in the gas tank?
Oh, yeah, right, pretty quick, because that gas would ignite pretty fast. So, we lost some crews there. As I said, we lost our group commander.
Did you know some people personally that were lost on that day?
Yes, I knew a real funny guy named Speed.
Speed?
Speed. Yeah, he was lost. He was a engineer on the aircraft.
Why'd you call him Speed?
I don't know. That was his name.
He had a good sense of humor?
Yeah. Another guy was a radio operator in the tent next to me, and he had to bail out, and he bailed out, came down okay, and then he landed close to a shell hole, which he went into. He stuck up his hand to see what was going on, and the sniper shot him through the head. And he was then evacuated. He came back. He was all right.
Oh, my gosh.
That was a real bad deal. Here's some pictures taken from the Cincinnati Post, I think.
On that day?
No, they were taken by, these pictures were taken by Robert Capa, who was a World War II photographer, who was in the plane with Colonel Filer, but he bailed out. And he took these pictures and showed some paratroops coming down, showed some paratroops being tended, wounded. So
what was the point of that mission? What were you all trying to take or do there?
We were trying to set up a situation for Montgomery, who had an army waiting on the other side of the Rhine. And paratroops dropped around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. The night before, he started crossing the Rhine with his... He had almost 1 million troops, allied, British, Canadian, American. And it was a penetration of the Germany, which is the object. Yeah. And it was very successful. The paratroops managed to keep the German centers at bay, like railroad crossings and things where they could rush reinforcements in. They were able to hold them off.
Oh, I gotcha.
That's what the air paratroops were doing.
I gotcha.
So they were relieved almost within 2 days. And then,
So what? Tell me about some of your missions. Did you go on some missions on the plane?
We didn't have really missions. I flew a lot, but
what would you do?
Fly wounded back from the front.
Oh, okay.
Did that.
Would you land where, at a airstrip?
Some near strip that they would carve out or improvise, or maybe it happened to be there near the front. The wounded were brought in, loaded into the plane on litters, and I have a picture here of a C-47 with the litter straps down, showing how it looked when they tried to...
Then what would you do personally on those planes?
My only job on those things was part of the navigation, to help the radio operator operate the navigation equipment.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They had what they call long-range aerial navigation, which is called LORAN. I was trained in that. And, you know, in Europe, it's pretty much you could fly by sight. It's rivers and places. Oh. If you went west, you're going home. If you went east, you're going into Germany.
Right. Were you involved in any night drops then of paratroopers?
No, never were. That was the last paratroop drop in Europe.
Is that right?
March 45. Wow. Last one. Now, we went in May of 45 to Barth, Germany, to pick up American flyers imprisoned there in Stalag Luft something number. I don't know the number.
Was the war over by then?
Yes. The war had just ended, shortly after VE Day. So we picked up these flyers. I got some pictures of the flyers. This is a guy at Sturika. He was a guy who got shot in the hand on the drop.
At Sturika. Yeah. Stureka.
Yeah. He's with the Russian pilot of a liaison plane at Barth, Germany.
Wow.
These are some of the... I later found out that a guy in Jackson, Wyoming, was one of this group of flyers that we picked up.
Wow.
He owns a bar there.
Neat. So let me ask you, were you on C-46s, did you say, or C-47s?
C-46s mainly. I flew C-47s too, but we got the 46s shortly before the March drop.
And tell me, what was that like in the flight? How long were you up in the air? Was it loud in there? Was it comfortable? What was it actually like on the plane?
I don't know. It was comfortable. But the C-46 was quite an improvement as transportation to the C-47, but it had that defect of non-self-sealing gas tanks.
Yeah.
Caused a disaster. And so we lost the C-46s shortly thereafter.
Sure.
Got C-47s back.
What was how big was the crew on your planes?
Pilot, co-pilot, navigator, radio operator, and radar operator. Sometimes the navigator was not aboard. They followed a lead plane.
Were you ever shot at or hit your plane?
No, never once, to my knowledge. When we flew to pick up wounded, we were probably within 20, 30 miles of the front. But never were shot at. There were German planes still making raids in England at that time.
Sure.
So our biggest worry was we'd run across a stray German fighter, because he'd have made mincemeat out of us. But,
did you have guns on your plane?
No. It was just completely unarmed.
Unarmed. And tell me about the. Do you remember anything about the wounded? Did they all make it back? Did any of them die on the flight? What were some of the wounds?
Knowledge. I remember one severely wounded young boy. His shell had gone off near him. His head had been burned. His head was completely wrapped in white gauze and had eye holes cut in it and a hole for his mouth. And I took earphones off of it, plugged them into the jack nearby, and I got the Armed Force radio network going with music. I put it on his head, and he shook his head. So I know I could hear that music.
Yeah.
That was, I often thought, I wonder what happened to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
When they offloaded him, they went off to the hospital, and we never knew what happened to him.
And where were you staying at that time? You're staying in barracks? At a camp?
I was staying in tents.
Oh, in tents.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that camp?
B-54.
Oh, and that was in France?
In France.
Okay, you told me that. What was tent living like?
Well, it was all right when the weather was good. It wasn't much when the weather was cold.
Oh, I see. Yeah, good.
There's the tents there.
There's the tents there. Yeah, and you said, let's see, Ike proclaimed holiday on anniversary of D-Day, June 6, 1945.
Yeah. Pitching horseshoes, I think.
Pitching horseshoes. What was the chow like?
Oh, Army chow. Sea rations heated up, things like that. Nothing fancy.
Nothing fancy. So every day, would you be in the plane every day?
No. No.
Every week?
Yeah, certainly at least once during the week. Either flying wounded or flying supplies to the front.
I gotcha.
We flew gasoline, which makes you a little nervous.
Sure.
You know, we got jerry cans full of gasoline on the ship.
How long would the flight take about?
Oh, we were never more than an hour and a half from where we had to go.
So you were there in that camp until VE Day?
Yeah.
And even afterwards?
Shortly thereafter, yeah.
What was it like when VE Day was proclaimed?
A big sigh of relief. There was another paratroop drop planned in May. And we're all kind of nervous about that. And that was going to be maybe on to Berlin. So we were sweating out the idea of that at least.
Yeah.
But then VE Day came and that was all over.
What was it? Was there a big party or fireworks or what?
No, just a bunch of Jolzers grabbing some beer wherever they could. We didn't have much access to.
When you were in this camp, were you allowed to go out into the little villages in France for R&R?
Yes. I went to Albert.
Albert?
Albert.
What was that like?
It was a nice little French town. And we had a place we hung out in. It was a bar and a restaurant.
Do you remember the names of them?
The name of the bar in France is in Albert, but I could find it if I went back to the town.
Yeah, sure. What were the French? Were a lot of French people just? What were they like?
French people are very strange. They're half of them resented us, really, because they felt that bad because they hadn't been able to handle the road deal. They felt bad the Americans had to pull their chestnuts out of the fire. But by and large, I got along good with the French people. And near our base, went to a couple of people's houses, and they fed us some eggs and things like that.
Oh, some French people's houses?
Yeah, in this little town of Irle.
Neat.
This is it here.
Irle. I-R-L-E-S.
E.S.
Irle, France.
There's a Catholic church there.
Were you able to go to Mass there?
Yeah, went to Mass there. And there was a officers club right here.
Neat. So then, when did you leave that camp? How long were you there after VE Day? You said after VE Day you picked up some pilots that were
in North Germany. Yeah.
In North Germany that were imprisoned. Do you remember anything that those pilots had to say about their prisoner of war experiences?
No, didn't talk to them much at all. They had been treated rather harshly, and they were all so damn glad to get out of that camp.
And you were what rank this whole time? Corporal?
Corporal then, yeah.
Remember anything about your commanding officers? What were they like?
Colonel Filer was a group commander. I didn't have much contact with him. I knew him, as we all did, because we had formations. We had to assemble in front of him. Our commanding officer, I think, what the name? Cobb, C-O-B-B. I'm not sure. Major Cobb. That strikes my mind. And we didn't have much.
Did you have any encounters with General Mark Clark or Pat or any of those guys, Patton?
No encounters with them at all.
Any of your close friends from childhood or any other friends from Notre Dame that pass away in the war?
Yeah, I lost a couple of good friends. One of them was Roy Grumbine.
Mm-hmm.
Went down with the USS Indianapolis, I think, on a ship in the Pacific, and last I saw him, he struck out. He thought he saw an island. He took off swimming, and it was a barrage, and he disappeared.
Was he a friend from your childhood?
Yeah, high school. He played at Purcell High School, and I played at Xavier High School, and so we kind of knew each other from that.
So back to this. When did you leave that camp after VE Day?
Turned off.
So what'd you do? May 26th to 29th, you went to Brussels?
Yeah, I had a 3-day pass.
What was that like?
Well, I tried to drink the town dry, but I didn't make it.
You're Irish. I didn't think Irish people drank.
Oh, yeah, a little bit now and then. Good for the soul.
Were people, was there a lot of joy the war was over in Brussels?
Oh, yeah, the people were extremely happy, very friendly to the American soldiers. We were quartered there in like a dormitory, and we just saw everything we could see in the town.
A lot of sightseeing?
Yeah, a lot of sightseeing, and then we hung out in the bar. That was
Neat.
about it. Here was an interesting thing. In June, still in France at B-54, I was asked to co-pilot a CG-4 glider from B-54 to Stuttgart, Germany. They were assembling all the war equipment and trying to get it to Stuttgart. They're going to burn it up so the French didn't get it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why didn't they want the French to get it?
Well, I don't know, but I co-piloted that glider, and that was a thrill. Enjoyed it very much.
Oh, interesting. A glider? Did it have no engine?
No. I was needed as ballast. The pilot sat on the left side, and if there's nobody sitting on the right side, the thing was cocked.
Yeah.
So I flew as ballast on the right side. I had the controls, and he let me fly it a little bit. But you're on a tow rope behind the plane. And then when you come to the field, he yanks something, the tow rope flies away, he banks around, and we land.
Neat. So you got to be a pilot after all.
Oh, yeah. If you want to call it that. Had a pass to Paris, in July of 45.
Yep. What was that like?
Oh, that was a good time there.
Where did you stay?
This is a bunch here.
Oh, there you are. A bunch of men there lined up at the Arc de Triomphe in July 11th, 1945.
Yeah.
And there's Corporal Cronin there. There must be a couple dozen men there.
Oh, yeah, at least.
At least. That's you right there.
Yeah.
Neat.
I was with this guy named Albright from our group, Frank Albright.
Frank Albright. What'd you do in Paris?
Sightsaw. Just saw everything we could. And tried to drink the town dry. Didn't make it. And,
did you go in Notre Dame Cathedral and all that?
Yeah, we did. There's Notre Dame Cathedral here. Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Joan of Arc statue.
So what was the mood in Paris like then? Were they nicer to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were very happy the war was over. And they, I think they might even have bought us a drink or two.
Did you ever see any German POWs at all or anything? Or where were they being kept?
I had an experience after the war with the German PWs. We'll get to that here in a minute. V-Day was May 8th. I was supposed to leave camp at that time and get on a ship to go to the Pacific by way of USA.
Oh.
I was assigned to the SS William and Mary, due to sail September 3rd.
You arrived at Camp Top Hat at Antwerp, Belgium.
Yeah.
For POE?
Port of Embarkation.
Oh, August 23rd.
Except that I got canceled off of that because VJ Day happened. And the war in Japan was over, so they didn't need us there.
Wow.
So I was sent, just stayed there.
You made it by one day. VJ Day was September 2nd, and you were going to sail September 3rd?
That's right. Yeah, made that. I was scratched from the ship. If you had less than 80 points based on length of service, time overseas, campaign ribbons, wounds, medals, and so forth, I was sent to the Quartermaster Battalion at San Quentin, France. I arrived there by train on September 10th.
What did you do there?
Nothing, just milled around there for a while. I left there on the 24th. I arrived in Ansbach, Germany, going to be part of the occupation.
Oh.
I spent 4 days on a French 40 and 8 train. 40 and 8 means 40 men and 8 horses, or 8 horses. Oh, we had the 40 men all right, and I don't know, you had to sleep all scrunched up. It was kind of a tough trip. I was assigned to the 921st Signal Company Aviation near Ansbach, Germany, doing first echelon repairs on aircraft radio and radar. I visited Nuremberg, Ansbach. I went deer hunting a few times and took a course in bookkeeping.
Did you get any deer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we shot some deer. I'll show you. I think I got pictures of it.
What'd you shoot them with? Your,
carbine. There we are, going off hunting.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Neat. Wow. So you're repairing aircraft there? You're taking courses?
I was repairing first echelon repairs on aircraft radio and radar units. That went on until November 1945. I was transferred to the 394th Signal Company at Erlangen, Germany. While there, I went to Munich.
Wow, and Dachau.
Saw Munich, and I went to Dachau concentration camp.
What was that like?
Terrible. I still had prisoners there. They hadn't moved yet.
Jewish prisoners?
Well, they weren't all Jewish.
Yeah.
They were just people the Nazis had imprisoned.
They were still there? What were they still doing there?
Well, I don't know. I guess they were there to run the camp, but they had their striped uniforms on.
You saw that, huh?
Yeah. I saw the tree where they used to hang up by their thumbs. They were marched round into the tree limb where the rope went. Heard awful stories there. Left there. This is where I came in contact with the German prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm. In Munich?
No, I was sent from Erlangen, Germany. I was assigned to the 3rd Labor Supervision Company. A Sergeant Dave Finn and I were given 13 German POWs, all from the Luftwaffe Signal Battalion that had surrendered intact, and on December 10th proceeded to Liège, Germany. We quartered the Germans in the town of Steinbach, and we took up residence in this little hotel here, and the mission was to maintain the telephone lines for the 9th Air Force that used to be the Luftwaffe telephone lines. So the Signal Corps Battalion was doing what they'd always do. So we had radio contact with them, or telephone contact. They ran a wire from our room to the town of Steinbach, Germany, and they would call us up and say, American riding with them in their truck. We used their equipment, their German trucks, all their stuff that they'd surrendered intact. So
did you have to have a gun on them the whole time, or what was that like?
I wore a .445, but they weren't argumentative. They were very happy that
the war was over.
The war was over, and they had something to do, and they were being fed. So
what were they like? Did you talk with them? They speak English? What was their?
No, they didn't speak much English. I didn't have much discourse with them. I can't remember that I did anyway. I must have tried to talk to him once in a while. Sitting in the front seat of a truck with a German driver.
Yeah.
You're bound to talk about something or try to. But while I was in Germany doing that in the station in Liège, there's a painting over there in the wall of that building. You see it?
I see it, yeah.
Now that painting was done by a German who lived in a house right over here. And for a carton of cigarettes, he made that painting for me.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's a wonderful painting.
Yeah.
Oh, how neat.
It shows exactly how it
exactly. It's a nice souvenir.
Yeah.
So what else happened there? How long were you there? That was November of 45. Then in January of 46, something happened there?
My friend Jim Voss, who's a friend from high school, he's a lieutenant with the Combat Engineers. He was based in Lampertheim, Germany. By mail, we communicated. He knew where I was, and he sent me a letter and said he'd be there to pick me up if I could get away for a couple of days.
Yeah.
He arrived in a Jeep. I got in a Jeep, went over to Lampertheim, stayed with, they had commandeered a nice German house, 3 officers, and with the Combat Engineer Battalion. And I stayed there with them, and we drank the Germans' wine and had a good time.
What were the German people doing at this time? What was it? Was it business as usual? Were people working?
No, they weren't that. I would say that a lot of them were hard up because things hadn't gotten back to normal yet. You know, trains weren't running and buses weren't running, and a lot of the jobs weren't there. But they pretty self-sufficient. They existed. And
what did they think about the occupiers?
They didn't seem to resent us, which is good. There was a group called the German Youth. We were warned to be aware of them. They had formed a corps of people that was committing some abducting U.S. soldiers and beating them up and setting fire to houses and things like that. But we didn't have any of that. I thank God I didn't.
So what happened after that trip? Then what did you do?
I left Liège on February 13th, 1946. I returned to Erlangen, Germany to the 394th. I was granted a furlough to Switzerland on February 19th to the 27th from Erlangen, Germany.
Wow.
Got a bunch of mementos there from...
Learned
how to ski there.
Neat.
Ellsworth, Ed Larson were two of the guys I met up with. We stayed in the hotel in
Your model?
what's the name of it?
Zermatt.
Yeah.
Zermatt. You learned how to ski.
Took ski lessons there. That was almost a disaster. There's the three of us, the two guys I met, Ellsworth and the other guy,
Ed Larson.
We rented equipment. There's my receipt for the equipment.
Oh, yeah?
And we got a ski instructor, gave us some instruction. Took ski lessons from Severin Biner, B-I-N-E-R, for 2 days. All of 2 days. Then took a train to the top of the Gornergrot, which is a mountain there, and skied down. I put a question mark after skied. We could all been killed. But Biner saved us more than a few times. We got down. And my proof was I had my return train ticket there. I didn't use it. That was something.
That's great. You got some interesting souvenirs here. What's this one? It's a
German cross was awarded to German mothers who bore a child fathered by a pure Aryan man, frequently from the SS. I got that from some German for a pack of cigarettes or something.
Wow.
And this other thing is from a German armband worn by German party members.
I see. Okay, letters. So then, what happened after that? When did you make it home?
Not long after that.
So that's January of '46.
Yeah, I got home in March of '46.
How did you make it home? Did you
I was on a ship.
Ship from where?
Le Havre.
Oh, Le Havre, France?
Yeah.
What was the name of the ship?
You got me there, unless I have a record of it.
What was the mood like on the ship? What was that like?
Very joyous. People glad to be getting home. Wished that our accommodations were not quite as... We're down the hold where they had bunks. And they're 4 high. So when you had to get up to the top, somebody had to boost you up there. So we made do. We slept, played cards. Couldn't do much. Got off deck as much as we could to get the fresh air and watch what was going on.
And where did you land in America? New York?
Yeah, on the East Coast. And was shipped from there to Fort Bend Harrison and discharged from Fort Bend Harrison.
And where was that again? Fort Bend Harrison in
Indiana.
Then you went from there to back home to Cincinnati?
Yeah, my dad picked me up there.
Picked you up where?
At Fort Bend Harrison.
So he drove you home.
Yeah, right.
What was that like? You hadn't seen your dad in a couple years,
right?
right?
My dad and my brother showed up. I was really glad to see him. I thought, well, this is quite a journey we've had.
Which brother? What was his name?
Dick. Dick was in the Pacific.
Okay.
On the island of Biak. Air Corps security.
So he made it back too.
He made it back.
So you drove home to Cincinnati, to Bond Hill?
Yeah.
And what happened? Was there a big party for you? What was it like when you came home?
Well, I don't know. Just to renew it quick. I tried to get around town to see as many of my friends had gotten home.
Yeah.
Some of the friends who hadn't gotten in the Army I hooked up with. But I was very glad to be home, and I had to keep thinking about coming back to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So I think in June I went back up to South Bend and registered for admission in September.
And you finished, you had what, 2 more years to go?
Yeah, basically. I got out in June of '48.
Wow. That's something. Is there anything else, any other memories, anything else you'd like to recall for us? Anything, I had a question. Did you ever work with any black soldiers?
No, didn't have any contact with any black soldiers ever over there. They weren't allowed in the regular Army. They were truck drivers and things like that. They might have had an all-black division or regiment or something, but they weren't assimilated as they are today.
Sure. Anything else? Do you keep in touch with any of these guys?
Oh, I did with Larson and Zawalski for a while, and that faded away. And no, that's pretty much all in the past.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
I put this all together so I'd have it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have to read this. Okay. Well, Mr. Cronin, I really want to thank you for this, sharing your memories with me, and most of all, I want to thank you for your service to the country. You and your generation, your friends and loved ones, and your family helped make this a wonderful country. You helped give us our freedom, and I especially thank you for that.
I enjoyed doing what I did.
Are you glad you did it?
Yes.
Any other final words?
No, I have nothing to say other than that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cronin. Okay, I'm reading Corporal Cronin's honorable discharge paper. Again, it's Cronin John E., Army serial number 15342-086. Grade Corporal. Arm was AC, Arm or Service AC, Component ERC. Organization was the 313th Troop Carrier Group. Date of separation was 28 March 46. Place of separation was Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
I said Ben Harrison. It was Camp Atterbury.
Okay.
We're right near each other.
Gotcha. Thank you. Mr. Cronin lived on 1130 Cheyenne Drive in Cincinnati. His eyes were blue, red hair. 5'9", 176. Here's his military history. Date of enlistment, 17 November 42. Date of entry into active service, 26 February 43. Place of entry, Fort Harrison, Indiana. Military occupational specialty, radar mechanic, troop carrier, 849. Military qualifications was carbine, SS. What did SS stand for? Sharpshooter?
It's a grade of
Sharpshooter.
sharpshooter.
Huh, all right. Battles and campaigns, Rhineland and Central Europe. Decorations and citations, American Theater Ribbon, EAME Theater Ribbon, with 2 Bronze Star, a Good Conduct Medal, and Victory Medal, World War II. No wounds received in action. Longevity for pay purposes was 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days. Mustering out pay total was $300. The travel pay was $5.90. Total amount in the name of dispersing officer was $386.44. Lieutenant Colonel Calloway. Lapel button, as you can see.